He wasn't lazy. At least that's what he told himself. Just tired. Every time he sat down to work, his eyelids grew heavier. His mind started drifting. Tasks blurred. Sleep won. Coffee didn't help. Energy drinks gave him an hour at most. Then came the crash and the guilt. That sharp, quiet shame you feel when no one's watching but your conscience. He had dreams, of course. So many of them, too many. He wanted to create, to grow, to change his life. But somehow, he was always stuck in the loop. Start. Get overwhelmed. Take a nap. Wake up anxious. Repeat. His friends said, just work harder. His family said, get a stable job. A monthly salary is enough. And some nights, he almost listened. He almost gave up on more because just enough looked easier. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the naps and the caffeine crashes, beneath the scrolling and self-pity, a voice whispered, you're not weak. You're just unused to discomfort. You quit not because you can't, but because you expect it to be easy. And that one thought, one late night, refused to leave. It stayed with him, like a splinter in his sleep, like a flicker that said, what if you just keep going? He didn't try to change his life overnight. He just gave himself one rule, 1 hour every day, no excuses. Not a whole day, not perfection, just 60 minutes. He turned off his phone, closed the other tabs, opened the task he had been avoiding for weeks. 10 minutes in, he felt it, the old resistance. His shoulders slumped, his eyes burned, his brain screamed for distraction. Sleep, scroll. This isn't worth it. But for once, he didn't listen. He didn't do it well. His focus wandered. He made mistakes, but he stayed. And when the hour passed, he stood up, stretched, and said quietly, I didn't run today. The next day, he did it again. Still tired, still struggling, but something changed. He began to notice. The fatigue wasn't physical, it was psychological. The moment things got unfamiliar, his body had been trained to retreat. It wasn't laziness, it was fear, masquerading as exhaustion. He laughed one night, remembering how many times he thought, I'm just not built for this. But now he realized he had never truly tried long enough to know. He wasn't lacking talent. He was lacking endurance. And endurance, he discovered, wasn't given. It was earned, minute by minute, hour by hour, by showing up when the old self begged to quit. A month in, he started hearing it. That won't work. You're wasting time. Just get a job and stop dreaming. It wasn't cruel. They meant well. Friends, family, they wanted him safe, stable, normal, a salary, a desk, a routine. He almost gave in. He almost believed them because he still had no results, no income, no recognition, just a chair, a screen, and a quiet promise to himself. 1 hour every day, but something had changed. This time, he didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't beg for support. He just smiled and said, I'm still figuring it out. Then he returned to work, not out of pride, but because deep down, he'd begun to taste something new. Discipline. And once you've tasted it, no approval can replace it. There were still bad days. Days when he wrote nothing, created nothing, stared at the screen and fought sleep. But now he knew it wasn't a sign to stop. It was a sign to stay. One night, his friend texted, still chasing that silly dream. He looked at the message for a while, then typed back, I'm not chasing it anymore. I'm building it, one brick at a time. And he put the phone down, opened his laptop, and kept going. He used to scroll through success stories, YouTube videos, motivational speeches, titles like, How I Made $100,000 in 3 months, How I Went from Zero to SU. And every time, his heart would race, his dreams would swell. But then, reality, his progress, quiet, uneventful, messy, no viral moments, no big wins, just a quiet desk, a notebook full of scribbles, and small lessons learned each day. But now, he saw it differently. Those overnight successes, they weren't really overnight. Behind every viral story was 1,000 invisible days. Days full of confusion. Days with no applause. Days when quitting made more sense than continuing. And for the first time, he stopped comparing. He stopped measuring his day 30 against someone else's year 10. He accepted something powerful. I don't need to be fast, I just need to not stop. And with that truth, he worked slower, more deliberately. He read more. He wrote more. He reviewed, improved, restarted, not to prove anything, but to grow. Because now, he didn't just want success, he wanted mastery. One morning, he walked past a construction site, watched men pouring concrete, steel rods, foundations. No walls yet, no rooftop, but it was clear. This is where the strength is built. And he smiled to himself. That's what I'm doing too. It wasn't much. $10 transferred from a stranger. For a small piece of work he almost didn't think was good enough to sell. He stared at the notification for a while, not in disbelief, but in quiet awe. Someone paid me for something I created. No office, no degree, no boss telling him he was ready. Just him, his effort, and one person who believed it was worth something. He didn't rush to celebrate, didn't post about it, didn't call his friends. He just sat there, smiling to himself, heart steady, eyes softer, because for the first time, he felt it in his bones. I'm not stuck anymore. I'm building. That night, he walked differently, slower, straighter. He didn't feel like a dreamer. He felt like a builder, a beginner. Yes, still far from his goals, absolutely, but no longer a man trapped in excuses, no longer sleeping through his own life. It wasn't about the money. It was about what the money meant. It meant he could start from zero. It meant someone saw value in what he'd struggled to create. It meant the time he spent alone, working through doubts, wasn't wasted. And in that moment, he didn't feel tired, not even a little, because when effort finally meets outcome, even a single drop of success can quench the thirst of 100 dry days. It wasn't much. $10 transferred from a stranger. For a small piece of work he almost didn't think was good enough to sell. He stared at the notification for a while, not in disbelief, but in quiet awe. Someone paid me for something I created. No office, no degree, no boss telling him he was ready. Just him, his effort, and one person who believed it was worth something. He didn't rush to celebrate, didn't post about it, didn't call his friends. He just sat there, smiling to himself, heart steady, eyes softer, because for the first time, he felt it in his bones. I'm not stuck anymore. I'm building. That night, he walked differently, slower, straighter. He didn't feel like a dreamer. He felt like a builder, a beginner. Yes, still far from his goals, absolutely, but no longer a man trapped in excuses, no longer sleeping through his own life. It wasn't about the money. It was about what the money meant. It meant he could start from zero. It meant someone saw value in what he'd struggled to create. It meant the time he spent alone, working through doubts, wasn't wasted. And in that moment, he didn't feel tired, not even a little, because when effort finally meets outcome, even a single drop of success can quench the thirst of 100 dry days. They called it love, and maybe it was. We're worried about you. This lifestyle isn't sustainable. It's been months and you've barely made anything. Why not just take that job? At least you'll have health insurance. He sat quietly, listening. He didn't argue, didn't defend, because they weren't wrong. The job offer was safe, respectable, a monthly paycheck, a desk with his name on it. He could almost feel the relief if he said yes. Less explaining, less pressure, less doubt. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, is that the life you're building, or the life you're settling for? That night, he took a long walk. No music, no distractions, just his thoughts. And he remembered the naps, the guilt, the loop of almost trying, almost quitting. He remembered what it felt like to wake up with a bitter taste in his mouth because he knew he was betraying himself. And now, he might be tired, he might be broke, but he could look in the mirror and say, I showed up every day. Even when it was hard, even when no one clapped. So he answered their concern not with resistance, but with clarity. I appreciate the offer, truly, but I'm building something I believe in, and I'd rather fail on my own path than succeed on someone else's. It wasn't dramatic. There was no applause. Some nodded, some stayed silent, but he knew This was the first time in his life he chose purpose over comfort. And from that day on, his commitment wasn't just emotional, it was real. It started with a post, one small comment he left under a video. "I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not quitting this time." He didn't expect anything, just words into the void. But replies came in, dozens, then hundreds. "Same here. 1 hour a day is saving my life. Thank you for saying this. I thought I was the only one." And for the first time, he realized something he had never believed. There are more of us than I thought. Not the loud ones, not the overnight successes, but the quiet fighters, the slow builders, the people who had failed 100 times and still woke up to try again. He joined a small online group, strangers scattered across the world, sharing struggles, wins, lows, milestones. Some were ahead of him, some just beginning, but none of them judged, because they all knew the feeling of sitting in front of a screen, fighting off doubt and choosing courage instead. They cheered for his tiny victories. They shared tools, tips, playlists, books. But more than that, they shared belief. "Keep going. It gets better. You're not lazy. You're just rewiring." And those words, they meant more than likes or money. They were proof that he didn't have to carry the weight alone. He still worked alone, still sat in silence each morning. But now, somewhere in the back of his mind, was a crowd he couldn't see, but could always feel. People who understood, people who believed. And on the days he felt weakest, he would whisper to himself, "I'm not alone anymore," and that changes everything. It was a quiet morning, no rush, just the soft hum of the fan and a cup of half-warm coffee beside his keyboard. He opened his inbox, expecting spam, promos, the usual. But there it was. Subject: "You don't know me, but I needed to say thank you." He clicked. The message was long. From someone halfway across the world. A girl who had stumbled on his tiny project. A video, a blog post, a little thing he almost didn't share because he thought it wasn't good enough. But to her, it mattered. "I've been feeling stuck, like I'm behind. But then I read your words. I saw myself in your struggle. And somehow, it made me want to try again." He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, let the weight of the moment settle on his chest. He had spent so long thinking he was building something for himself. A way out, a path forward. But now he realized it was more than that. He was building a light, and even if it flickered, even if it was small, it had reached someone else in the dark. He didn't respond right away. He just sat there, hands folded, eyes soft. This is why I can't stop. Because for years, he had been the one searching, looking for voices that said, "You're not broken. You're just beginning." And now, he had become one of those voices. Not loud, not famous, but real. That night, as he closed his laptop, he didn't feel like the boy who used to fall asleep when work got hard. He felt like a man who had kept a promise to himself, and unknowingly, to others too. Years later, he sat at the same desk, but nothing about him was the same. His hair had a little more weight, his routine, a little more peace. His voice no longer shaky when he introduced himself. The work, it still wasn't easy, but it was his. The income came, then doubled, then turned into something stable, something strong. But none of it, not the numbers, not the wins, felt as meaningful as the man he had become to get here. He no longer craved shortcuts. He no longer admired overnight success. Now he admired people who stayed, who worked in silence, who failed and came back, who didn't need applause to keep showing up. He admired the part of himself that once wanted to quit and didn't. He often thought about that old version of himself, the one who couldn't finish a task without dozing off, the one who lived on caffeine and guilt, the one who had so many dreams but no rhythm. And now, he whispered to that boy inside him, "We made it, not by being perfect, but by not giving up." One evening, his wife walked in, set a warm cup of tea on the table beside him. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. She had been there through every failed attempt, through every sleepless night, every restart, every quiet breakdown. And now, as she looked at him, not for what he earned, but for the man he had become, He smiled. Thank you for believing when I couldn't. And to anyone who asked him what changed, he always said the same thing. Nothing changed. I just kept going. Hello. Thank you for choosing this video out of thousands of videos out there. Thank you so much for listening to this story. This story isn't about someone extraordinary. It's about someone very ordinary. Someone like me. And maybe someone like you. A person who used to be lazy, who often gave up, who felt tired just thinking about work, who lived in a constant tug of war between wanting to do more and never having the energy to begin. Maybe you felt that too. Maybe you've been disappointed in yourself. Maybe you've told yourself, I don't have discipline, I just can't stick with things. But what I've learned is this: no one is born disciplined. No one is born strong. These things are built, one small effort at a time, one quiet decision to try again, even when your motivation is gone. One day where you show up, even if it's not perfect. This story wasn't written to sound inspiring. It was written to remind you, if you're tired, if you're slow, if you feel far behind, it's okay. You're not broken. You're just becoming. Final reminder, every dream begins fragile, but if you feed it with consistency and care, it will grow with you.